Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the sports arena. Yes, Radio Row for Super Bowl 59, your man Eric Wilson. I am here with the gentleman, former Tulane linebacker, Sam Bruchhaus. Thank you. So Sam, thank you for joining me here on the sports arena. I appreciate you.
Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to talk.
So let's talk about your time at Tulane as a linebacker, because you have transitioned, like a lot of athletes do, from the world of professional sports to the world of media and entertainment. How have you, as a former linebacker, now in the world of sports media, how has that helped you with honing your craft?
So I think at the top level, the way that we've moved in media with the algorithms and the different platforms is you really want to create quality stuff and do quality work. And the old school style, I say the old school, the more of the old school social media style of just cranking out as much as you can isn't the right way to approach it. So what it's given me is, combined with my data science background, because that's what we're doing at Sumer Sports, it gives me a basis of football knowledge and football experience that helps tell stories.
Okay.
Because a lot of time you see a graph or you see a number and it doesn't have anything behind it. But the ability to tie that all the way back to film, which is our goal at Sumer Sports, and then to add an additional, element of experience has really helped me out in this business.
Awesome. And again, I definitely see that the narrative is changing by what you at Sumer Sports, you and your colleagues are doing. But what's been the most surprising, or let's just say counterintuitive insight that you have gained from the data and the analytics within the world of football?
So I think if you watch Moneyball, for example, which is very similar to what we do, the word they use over and over again is one number.
Okay.
And that might be the case in baseball, where there's thousands of at-bats and many pitches and 162 games. But in football, that's not the case. And I've learned it's actually the opposite. The goal is to make an evaluation using artificial intelligence and machine learning and be able to tie it back to the film, because often what the scouts have learned over the years is very similar to what the AI is saying. But at the same time, we can pick up elements of decision making that are very, very hard and very, very minute in the timing of quarterbacks, for example. And that's kind of what I've learned, is it's not boiling it down to one number. It's really telling stories more so than it is in other sports.
Wow. And I think today's generation looks for that more so than the older generation, who is more focused on what you would call the eye test. And that's what I want to talk about. Talk to me about how you have been able to look at the eye test versus what AI is saying and find that happy marriage, so that now you're telling, in a lot of people's eyes, a more complete story within the game.
Right, and this is something we talk about all the time because we have both of those sides.
Right.
Our president is Thomas Dimitroff, longtime general manager of the Falcons. He has a team with over 500 years of scouting experience, and it's really been a handshake between the two of guys who have been in the league and want to understand more about the other side, and guys, outsiders coming from the analytics world, handshaking there. So there's a lot we can learn, particularly about the definition of what is going on plays, the coaching points that you wouldn't be able to pick up just if you were watching the film. And being able to build those in and create that joint language between analytics and scouting and coaching has been a massive difference.
So find me the balance then, because there has to be a balance between the raw statistical data and what you are seeing. Because listen, pretty much on every NFL game, at some point you're going to see a commercial that brings up what we call the gap, the yards after catch, or the precision of throwing a football and the percentage of a player catching versus not catching. How do you make it all make sense?
Yeah, so here's the balance really, is we want to try to easen up the job of the guys who used to be just charting things like yards after catch, because the NFL does actually not track that as an official stat. People have to go in and do that themselves. Yards after contact, running backs is another one. So we want to try to do that as efficiently as possible using AI, and AI is very good at it. And then where the handshake comes and where it goes on to the scouts is the elements that the computer would never do. I have a left guard here. He has a duo block. Here's the progression of the way that he wants to approach it. I have a quarterback here. We're dropping back on 3rd and long. Here's the progression of what he should be doing and how it's coached to him. The computers can never really pick that up. We can figure out who the expected target may be, or looking at every play in the history of our databases, what other quarterbacks did, but we don't really understand exactly what the coaches are. And given that our scouts and our coaches have such good lineage of knowledge, they understand the progression of those concepts, and they're able to help us out and really do what they love doing best, which is evaluating players.
So speaking of evaluating players, we are here, Super Bowl 59. You've got the top teams, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Can you share with me what your data, what your analytics is going to tell us we can maybe expect in this game?
So here's the interesting thing.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes has had a very down year part of our analytics, and it really kind of shows up in the game. They've changed the face of this offense. This offense is now a brute force offense. You look at a stat like expected points added,
okay,
and that adds context to the yards. That way, if you get 3rd and 7, you get 7 yards, or 6 yards you don't convert, it's not as important as if you did. The Chiefs' offense has not been very good in EPA per play, more around average, but what they've been doing very well is just slowly keeping the chains in front, getting into 3rd and short, and converting. Typically, that's kind of hard to do over the season, but we've seen Patrick Mahomes and that crew do it all year. It's going to be very interesting to see how that matches up against an Eagles defense, which has been absolutely excellent this year. A matchup to watch, Travis Kelce versus Warren Burks, the backup linebacker. Kobe Dean will be out.
Right.
Vic Fangio likes playing a zone-based defense. Nobody is better at exploiting zone-based defenses than Travis Kelce, and nobody is better at exploiting matchups than Patrick Mahomes.
So let me ask you about another matchup that may take place, and it's one that I'm very interested in. George Karlaftis versus Lane Johnson.
So here's an interesting one. If you go back and look at the film and the alignment data, Chris Jones often picks out who he wants to go against.
Right.
And Steve Spagnuolo has been using this in the last couple games to actually create holes and for penetration for the rest of the defensive line. So interestingly, against the Bills, Chris Jones at the end of the game was lining up against Deion Dawkins, their top left tackle.
Right.
And the goal was to create pain points for the lesser offensive linemen. So I wouldn't actually be surprised if down the stretch, Chris Jones starts lining up on that island that Lane Johnson has set up, and George Karlaftis and some of the other defensive players, and maybe even some of those secondary players, are blitzing towards guys like Mekhi Becton and the rest of that offensive line. Mailata obviously is a generational player as well, but I wouldn't be shocked if Chris Jones actually ends up lining up on Lane Johnson down the stretch so that they can create blitz opportunities and try to confuse Jalen Hurts.
All right, I got to ask you because we're here. You don't have to give me a score, but you got to give me a winner. Who is winning Super Bowl 59? Do the Kansas City Chiefs achieve immortality, if you will, and be the first team in NFL history to three-peat? Or do the Philadelphia Eagles, for the second time in franchise history, hold the Lombardi Trophy?
My prediction, the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's why. I believe the Eagles have the better roster. They have Mailata and Johnson, as we've talked about, the two best tackles in the league. They have an excellent defense, but they don't have the players at the important positions. Jalen Hurts, I believe in Patrick Mahomes more. Pass catching position, A.J. Brown, excellent, one of the best wide receivers. We've seen Travis Kelce do it time and time again. We saw him do it against the Texans. Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie on the other side. I think those core of the players are going to make the difference in this game.
All right. Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Sumer Sports, ladies and gentlemen, along with your man Eric Wilson for the Sports Arena here on Radio Row, Super Bowl 59. Everybody stay blessed, and I'll talk to you soon.